Hello everybody, I hope everybody's doing good. On the previous video that I made, it was what to consider when buying a used lawnmower that doesn't run. I bought this $30 Craftsman 21 inch. I'll leave a link to that video, but I'll explain to you real quick what the story was with this. So I went to look at the lawnmower, and the first thing I did is I checked the oil, and there was oil in it. And I went around and checked the deck and made sure there was no holes in it. And as I was checking it, the guy said that he put a new shut-off cable on it, which he did. And I checked the blade real quick, but I didn't shake the blade to make sure that the crankshaft was okay. Then I considered the gas tank, the carburetor, the filter housing, and the filter was good, and it had a brand new spark plug in it. And so I figured, for $30, I'll take the gamble. And then we tried to start it up, and it was just racing like crazy. It ran on its own, but it was racing like crazy. And I thought maybe the governor spring under here, I thought maybe that wasn't adjusted right, so I took tension off that, started it up again, it was the same thing. Then I went ahead and pulled the top cover off, and I was able to gain access to the lever, the governor lever that goes down into the engine. And as it appeared, something happened inside the engine, and especially with the crankshaft being so loose and everything, that the lever was just stuck on full throttle. So right then and there, I condemned the engine. The engine's no good. 2 days later, I found another Craftsman mower on the marketplace for $20. So I went and I looked at it, and the guy said he was having trouble he said he was killing himself trying to start it up. So I did the usual thing. I checked the oil, but this time when I went to check the blade, I shook the blade real good to make sure the crank was tight, and the crank is tight. I didn't do anything to this mower yet. I just got it all. I took it off the truck, and as I said, there was oil in it. But one thing that I noticed here was this shut-off cable, and the guy taped it over here, and the cable is cracked here real bad. And so just before I started making this video, I checked, and it's not even the clutch brake. What this does here is when you pull the cable, this goes forward and it activates the coil and releases the brake that goes to the flywheel. So what I'm thinking is the reason why this guy was killing himself was the brake was still on the flywheel, and he's pulling and pulling and pulling, and he couldn't get it started. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to disconnect this cable here, and I'm going to take a zip tie, and I'm going to push this all the way forward and zip tie it. It has gas in it, it has oil in it, and without doing anything like checking the spark plug or the what else? The air filter. We're just going to try to start this. Now, I did notice when I got it off the truck that one bolt was missing holding the muffler on, and the other one was halfway out. And I was hoping that this one that was missing wasn't broke off, which it wasn't. So what I did was I just took the 2 bolts, and I used the muffler off the other engine, and I just put the muffler on it right now. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to zip tie this, and let's see if we can get it started without doing anything more. I paid $20 for this, so we'll see if the engine's any good on it. He said he couldn't find the bagger for it. The other machine is a better machine, has better wheels on it and everything like that. And what I intend to do is, if this runs good, we're going to do an engine swap. It kind of doesn't feel like it's priming, but I did the thing with the shut-off cable. I disconnected it. I put a wire tie on there to hold the clutch away from the flywheel and to activate the coil. So I primed it a few times. We'll see what happens. I have a screwdriver here on standby, so I can just pop the spark plug wire off. Shut it down. It starts. Well, so far no good. So I'm gonna pop the spark plug out and pop the air filter off and see what's going on. Maybe I could just prime it and try to start it. So I primed it and I put that other spark plug in, that no name brand, whatever that was, off the engine that's blown. So we'll see what happens now. It doesn't feel like it has much compression either. I don't know if this is going to be a two-time loser so far with this build here. Maybe it could be the keyway in the flywheel, or it just has no compression, or it just wants to do something. It's another loser. I'm waiting for that torque to get caught under the blade. That's what I'm waiting on. We know it runs. It doesn't run great. I know the carburetor on the other machine, I might just swap them out instead of cleaning this carburetor. I'll see what happens. Sooner or later, the carburetor is going to have to get cleaned. But don't forget, now we got that no-name spark plug in there, which are garbage. So I'll end up putting in a Autolite or a Champion spark plug. But it seems to be running good. I think we have a winner there. That noise you heard when I was trying to start it was rocks. It was on the rocks over here. So I think we'll be all right with this. So I took care of the muffler issue before we did anything. What else? The pull cord on this one is getting pretty frayed. So what I'll do is I'll use the whole housing, you know, the pull cord recoiler and the pull cord. I'll just take it off this machine, and then the air filter is in really good condition on this. This one's just a little dirty. I could actually use this one too, but I'll just put that other air filter in. We're gonna get rid of this stupid spark plug here. We're gonna get rid of that. What else? I think while I have the engine off, I'll do a carburetor cleaning on this one. And I know the gas tank is good and it's not leaking. And I think that's about it. And we'll have a good running mower. After I shut the camera off, I felt that it's got good compression. The cylinder probably got washed out because he was trying to start it with that cable being bad. So once we had it running and I shut it off, I went to start it again and I felt the compression in it. There's no rod knocks in this. The oil, I'll be changing the oil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repair this engine. I'm going to pull this engine off First, I think I'm going to prepare the engine. You know, clean the carburetor, because I have to take all that stuff off. So when we do the actual engine swap, we'll just do the actual engine swap on camera. So, and that's it for now. Be back in a second. I stripped everything off the blown engine that we're going to be using on the good engine, and I'm using this top cover here, the recoiler assembly, because the rope in this one was good, the pull start rope, and I have to debate whether to use this filter or whichever filter is still on the other one. I still have to clean the inside of this out real good here, and I'm going to use this top plastic cover here, because on the other plastic cover this is all gouged out here, so this is the better cover. So always try to get the best parts together that you can. And while I was at it, I turned the deck on its side, and I cleaned it. Well, I can't turn it over now. I cleaned the bottom real good. There's a lot of grass stuck under there as usual, so I scraped that real good, and we're gonna get on and start taking the other mower apart. What you want to do is, after you get everything off the engine that's blown, I put the engine off to the side and to forget about it. I had to build once where I was changing the engine on it, on the machine, and what I did was I ended up putting the blown engine back on the machine and hooking everything up and everything, and it's not a pretty, it's not fun. So I already took the screws out of this cover, and we're not using this cover, so this is going off to the side of parts I'm not using. I've decided to use this carburetor and gas tank on it because this carburetor is not too bad. I might just give it just a quick cleaning without taking it apart. I'll show you how I do that in a little bit. And I'll begin by taking the air cleaner off this, and I'll show you another problem that I came across on the blown engine. I don't know, between the two filters, I think I'll use the other air filter. So I'll just put this off to the side. Okay, this is your primer plate here. There's 3 screws on here. So right off the bat on the blown engine, I think somebody was having problems with the primer, because these tend to warp where it mounts onto the carburetor. Then there's another mount bolt here. This one bolt was so tight in there that I almost couldn't get the socket on there to get it off. So I'm thinking that somebody tried to fix it by tightening it up real tight, and that one's a warped one. So we're gonna end up using this. So I'm gonna take this off, and I'll put it over by the parts we're going to use to reassemble. I actually had to use the ratchet to get the bolts out. They were so tight. I think the trick to this, because I've come across this so many times, is not to over tighten these bolts here, because then it warps the this whole plate here. So we're going to be using this and hope for the best. Because when we tried this engine out, when I first went to start it, it really wasn't priming. I just make sure there's a jet here for when you prime it. I'm going to make sure that that's clear, this is clear. I don't know how far I'm going to go with the carburetor, because it didn't run too bad when we were trying to start it. So So I get that. I'm gonna get this out of the way. With the bolts we're gonna use. Gasket, come on. I'm gonna have to clean that up real good too. The gasket's still on here. I do have other gaskets too. This all has to be all cleaned up real good. So I'll do that separately. I'm gonna pop the gas tank off, and then I'll put this off to the side and clean that up real good too. And once I have everything stripped down, I'm going to degrease the engine. And once I have the engine off, then I'll just give it a quick paint job. So we're going to need the 5/16 and the 3/8 on the ratchet here. So I'm going to be using all these nuts and bolts and stuff that I'm taking off stripping this, and I'm going to put them on the tray. I'm going to have to go in and get the magnet to get. I can never get my fingers in here to get these little bolts out here. I usually use a magnet. After you do this a few times, you'll know where every nut and bolt goes. So I'm not going to be fussy about putting them, in order. But if you never did it before, you should just put them where, where everything goes back together. Put it with the part. You put your bolts with the part that you're taking off. You could do it that way. So now we got to switch over to the 3/8. There's one bolt underneath here, and then there's a spacer, and once you take that off, you could remove the tank, and then I'll disconnect the fuel line. These are pretty easy to do. I mean, and then there's the spacer here that goes between the tank and the engine. So just put that bolt off to the side here. You can just lift this off here, and then I'll get a pair of pliers and pull this fuel line off. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to shoot that with a little air. Just get a little bit out of the way. I'll probably degrease this engine before I pull the engine off and clean it all up and hose it down. And then we'll take the blade off. I'll drop the oil out of it. And make yourself a note that this has no oil in it. Because you don't want to go through all this trouble and start it up and forget to put the oil in. I have a little bolt here that I'm going to stick in here so the gas doesn't drain all over the place. Just stick it right in the hose here. Oh, the whole thing came off anyway. Alright, so I'm going to put this off to the side here. You don't need a whole bunch of different size sockets and stuff to do this. It's usually just like a 3/8 socket, 5/16 socket, 1/2 inch, sometimes 7/16. And you just have one piece of linkage here. It goes on the top of the throttle. You just, now your carburetor's off. And now I'm going to pop this little O-ring off here. That's the seal for the carburetor to the manifold. Should be using a smaller screwdriver, but let me see if I could probably get it off with this. And then it's just your little O-ring here. I have some of these that are brand new. This one seems to be okay. And the one I took off the blown engine, I'll decide which one to use between the two. Sometimes they get dried out and they crack, so you'll want to replace that O-ring. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dipstick tube out. And I already have one cleaned up already to put on this engine that we're going to be using. So here's a 5/16 bolt. This is the same bolt that holds the gas tank on, the 3 that I took off here. So you can put this with that. And then I'm going to leave this in here though, because I still have to tilt the machine to drop the oil out of it. So I'm not going to take the dipstick tube out yet. Now you're going to go back to your 3/8. You're going to take the 4 bolts out that hold the cover, the top housing on. The good thing you could do is take pictures as you're taking it apart. You could do that too. Or make a video, put it on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to put this with parts that we're not using. I'll put it off to the side over there. I mean, it's a good cover and everything, and the recoiler is pretty good. So somewhere down the road when I need a cover with a good recoiler, I could put a new rope in this. off the muffler. As you saw, I had that problem on this engine here when I got it. The one bolt was loose, the other one was out, but luckily the bolt that wasn't broke off in the engine. So I'm going to take this muffler off, which is a 7/16 socket you're going to need for that, and it's 2 bolts. There's no sense bringing the camera around for that. It's just simple. It's a simple thing to do. There's 2 tabs on here that are bent over the bolts, so the bolts don't back out. But I didn't put the tabs back over because I knew I was going to be taking the muffler off, and I'll show you that when we reassemble it. And then the muffler's off. And I'll put this with the parts we're going to be using. I'm going to take the spark plug out, even though we're probably not going to, we're not going to be using this no-name plug here. You probably bought the kit and it came with this Chinese plug here, but we're not using that. I use that for a test plug because I know the plug works, and I'm just going to stick the plug in here, spark plug in here, that I use for when I clean and paint. And next we'll be moving on. I'll take the blade off, I'll drop the oil out, and I'll be right back with you. I'll get set up for that. Another thing I want to explain before we end this one, because I'm going to end this one now, is we're doing an engine swap. You want to take a measurement of, I usually take a measurement from the deck where the engine mounts to the bottom of the blade, and I measured the other one off. It's 3.5 inches. So this engine's compatible with this deck we're using. Some decks sit higher, so what happens is when you go to put the blade on, the blade will be too high, or sometimes the blade will be too low. So it's always good to make a measurement to make sure that you're using the right adapter. I save all the adapters off the blown engine. Sometimes you have to change the adapter to either take away from the length or to make more length. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.